From Hollywood, it's Paranormal Tonight. I'm Mark Summers, and now, here's your host, Dan Harary.
Everybody, welcome to From Hollywood, it's Paranormal Tonight. I'm Dan Harary. This is my new improved show on my new improved platform. We just launched the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance YouTube channel. I am the chairman and co-founder with Stephen Bassett of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, and we just launched the HDA YouTube channel. So if you're watching this show right now, you're watching the HDA YouTube channel. This is my first show for the new channel. I want to thank Margie Kay and the Onyx Network for providing me with my podcast from this past year, which was super fun, and I learned a lot. That was called Live from Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight. My show now is no longer live, it's recorded. So that's why I lost the word live. So it's From Hollywood, it's Paranormal Tonight. I have a very special guest on tonight's show. He's a good friend of mine. He's a member of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Craig Campobasso is a multi-award-winning filmmaker and Emmy Award-nominated casting director. He was 15 when he started in the entertainment business as an actor. As a teenager, Craig worked behind the scenes on such hit films as Dune, directed by the late David Lynch, who I met once briefly, and the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies Conan the Destroyer and Total Recall. Total Recall is maybe one of my favorite movies. Craig began his casting career on Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories. He received an Emmy nomination for outstanding casting for a series on David E. Kelley's show Picket Fences. Today, Craig's casting career has spanned over 3 decades, and he has over 100 film and television projects under his belt. After he experienced a life-changing spiritual awakening at age 26, which I will ask Craig about, Craig became an author with a 4-part book series called The Autobiography of an Extraterrestrial Saga. Craig also wrote, produced, and directed the short film Stranger at the Pentagon, based on a popular UFO book by Dr. Frank E. Strange, or Strangus. I don't know how to pronounce that word. I'll have to ask Craig. In 2021, Craig published his best-selling book, The Extraterrestrial Species Almanac, The Ultimate Guide to Greys, Reptilians, Hybrids, and Nordics, on the MUFON Books imprint. And last year, 2024, Craig transformed that book into a 90-minute documentary, which integrates authentic photographs of extraterrestrial entities, along with state-of-the-art computer-generated imagery and beautiful artistic renderings of many otherworldly beings. Craig has appeared on many radio shows, including Coast to Coast with George Noory, Fade to Black with Jimmy Church. He's been on TV on Ancient Aliens and on Gaia TV. In 2022, Craig released his latest book, which we'll talk about, the UFO Hotspot Compendium, All the Places to Visit Before You Die or Are Abducted. And like I said, Craig is a founding member of my group, the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. And if I don't screw this up terribly, here comes Craig Campobasso. How did I do, Craig?
You did great, and it's Stranges. So you were right. Stranges.
Stranges in the night. Like if Sinatra had my mother's Strangers in the Night, like, you know, the Brooklyn. Strangers in the
Oh, that's great.
I'll never forget that ever as long as I live.
Oh,
thank you, Craig, for being my guinea pig on my first new show. I really appreciate it, man.
Happy to.
Okay, so here we go. Let's just jump in. You ready?
Yeah.
It's the Dan Harary experience. Here we go. Craig, where did you grow up? What did your parents do? And what were your interests as a child?
Well, I grew up in the Valley here in Los Angeles, the San Fernando Valley. And I always wanted to be in the entertainment business. So that's why I got into acting when I was very young. And then after high school, I got offered a job to work behind the scenes on Dune with David Lynch, and I was on that production for 4 years. So I learned all about filmmaking there. My mother, Marie, was a daycare mother in the home. She loved children so much. And, usually when kids go to daycare, they scream and yell and don't want to leave their parents. They literally would run into my mother's arms and then scream and yell when their parents came to pick them up.
Your mother had the magic touch. The opposite of my mother. All you had to say, the opposite of my mother. Okay.
There you go. There you go. My dad worked for aerospace and other aerospace companies before that. It was secretive to what he did because we weren't allowed on the premises. I don't know what that is, but I also have a biological father who was in the Air Force. And I don't know if you know this, Dan. He was in Project Blue Book.
I think I read that somewhere in one of your bios somewhere.
Yeah, he was in Project Blue Book, and when he decided to leave the Air Force, he came back to Los Angeles, and he ultimately became the head of construction at Warner Brothers, building sets for movies and television. So here I'm writing books for MUFON. Here he was working for Project Blue Book. I'm in casting in the movies and TV, and he built sets for movies.
And that's like remarkably synergistic.
In the DNA, yes.
Yeah, it's in the DNA.
Yeah.
Remarkably.
And he's buried right across the street from Warner Brothers at Forest Lawn.
Wow.
Yeah.
I worked at Columbia Pictures in the 80s when it was called the Burbank Studios. Yeah, when Columbia and Warner's were at the same place. What did you do on Dune? I mean, did you get coffee or what
I was a production assistant, so that meant I did everything. So I worked for David, I worked for the producers. I would, the fun part about it as time went on is I would go, like on our first initial meeting with Kyle MacLachlan, I went and picked him up at the airport, took him to the hotel, got him ready for his meeting with David, brought him down to Universal, and, began that. I was there the day we did 2 days of screen tests. So that was very exciting for me. But, I was more of a member of the family than a gopher, right? Because I was able, everyone taught me things because I really wanted to learn. So I learned about producing. I learned about directing just by watching David. And, it was a very exciting time. So, and I would go back and forth to when we shot in Mexico. I was based at Universal Studios, but I would hop on planes and bring stuff down on the spur of the moment. And
how did you fit that in with high school?
No, I was just out of high school. I graduated when I was 17.
Wow.
Yeah, I graduated. I only had to go to 3 classes in my first part of the semester in 12th grade, and I graduated. So I just went back for the ceremony. I really didn't want to do the ceremony, but my parents wanted to see me graduate. So I went and I did it. And I'm glad I did because I have those pictures. So
that's so cool. What you did, Craig, as a teenager with movies, I did with rock stars.
Really?
At a rock concert hall called the Sunshine Inn in Asbury Park. For me, from ages 15 to 18, I was the stage manager along with my very best friend. We were the stage managers and we ran the lighting at this concert hall. Well, who do you think is from Asbury Park, New Jersey? Bruce.
Yeah.
Bruce.
Right.
I worked with Bruce in 1973. My friend and I worked with Bruce 2 years before he was famous. And funny story, Clarence Clemens, his sax player, asked me and my friend after the concert, he goes, "Hey, do you guys want to be our road crew? We need a road crew." Me and my friend were 16, right? So this is a true story. I go, "Clarence, we're 16. We don't drive a car yet. And I'm pretty sure our fathers want us to go to college." And Clarence looked at me like, "You're going to turn down being the road crew for Bruce Springsteen?" And he walked away. And look, I wouldn't have had my kids. I'd be deaf. I'd be hunchbacked from carrying amplifiers.
Yes,
So I
exactly.
think I made the right decision.
You did.
You had a life changing experience at 26, and I don't know
Yeah.
that. Tell me that story.
So it really was interesting. It was right after I had just finished working on Amazing Stories. I worked on that show for 1.5 seasons. After the second season ended, they did not renew the show. And all of a sudden I began having dreams, seeing these beings that were so filled with love that I would notice it in the dream, and I would kind of wake up and I would feel this incredible unconditional love around me. And there were three beings, two female, one male. And this went on in the dream state for 2 months. And then the next 2 months, I would be in the dream state with them. And then I would wake up in the dream. And I realized that this wasn't a dream, that this was actually happening, that my soul now was somewhere else. And I recognized it. I still didn't really understand who they were, except for I was just getting this inoculation of love like I've never experienced. And then the last 2 months, the same two processes. I would open my eyes and then their astral forms would be at the foot of my bed. So I knew that this was some real reality coming towards me. Then they put me through a series of waking processes. It's too long to go into now, but maybe if we do another show, I'd be happy to. But what it did is it woke up the cellular structure in my body, and I began to see things more cosmically. I began to start understanding things that I was contemplating, about life elsewhere. I never thought about it until my experience with these beings. Never thought about what was out there. I wasn't into science fiction. I wasn't into any of that stuff. And then they ignited my light body so I could astral travel off planet. So I started visiting other planets, started seeing other beings, started
Always was this, Craig? Was this always at night?
always at night, always in the astral.
Wow.
Yeah, always in the astral.
Did they ever tell you who they were or where they were from?
Yes. Yeah. And that's where two of the beings are from one place and one female is from another place. But those beings, the male told me after this waking process, he said, and mind you, during these first 2 years of this waking process, I was writing down all my experiences. I journaled them. I wrote them in a book, and I thought, well, maybe I would publish them. And then I went to Mount Shasta. I had a major experience there. And when I returned home, that master teacher visited me in his soul body, by the way, in his soul body in broad daylight with my eyes open. It was the most mind-blowing thing I've ever seen in my life. Wow. Giant golden rod of light from floor to ceiling, expanded way out with all these ovals, prismatic gold, just going, and like my whole body just was going crazy. And he left me a metaphor to contemplate, which was the truth of the triangle is the power of the pyramid. And then he danced around my living room. I had a little 1-bedroom apartment back then. And then he went up the portal. There was 3 portals that I knew of because I would see them coming down. But he had told me when I returned from Mount Shasta, he said, it is now time to sit down and write the books that you actually came here to write. He said, what would you say if I told you you just wrote that book for yourself?
Your first book.
The first one. And I said, then I learned a lot about myself. He said, now it's time to write the books you came here to write. I want you to get a pad and paper. I didn't even have a typewriter at that time. And he said, I want you to write and write and write until you can write no more. Don't stop. Don't edit. Don't nothing. So I just started doing that. Like the minute he said to do it, I just started writing. It just kept going and going. I was hearing words I didn't know, so I didn't stop. I would just spell them as best as I could, right? And then I would go until it stopped. And now I didn't know what automatic writing or what channeling was back then at all. And so this is how the process went. And then I would ask them to spell words, and then I would look it up in the dictionary, and I would just be blown away. That it fits so, symmetrically into the sentence.
Wow. My automatic writing story, I think. Do you remember?
No, I don't.
You were at the HDA launch at Musso and Frank. You were
yes.
there. Yeah,
yes.
Basically, 3 days after my father died, I went to get a pastrami sandwich, and I got a download and a video from 47 years earlier projected through my eyes, and it played. And It was me and my father from 1970 seeing a major UFO. It hit me in the head, and it played. And I watched it. And then I heard, get a pen. And then, Craig, I did automatic writing.
Yeah.
And I read a book about benevolent aliens. Lead character's father knew about UFOs. And then ATC. And I looked at it for a while, and then I came up with
your book. Yes,
book.
Exactly. I have that.
Yeah, that's where this came from. And then I got my pastrami sandwich.
Man, that's right.
All right, I don't want to talk about me. You're more interesting than me. Okay, now I'm hoping I don't screw this up terribly, okay? So
all right.
Here we go. And you are my very first, so I so appreciate this. Okay. So this book, you have 82 species in this remarkable book, which I loved. How did you come up with 82 species? And big picture, Craig, is how did you go about researching this book?
So my literary agents back east for books, they did a deal with their publishing company, with Red Wheel Weiser, and then they tied in MUFON. So they created the MUFON imprint. Now, he, of course, knew about the autobiography of an extraterrestrial saga, the 4 books that I wrote. Of course, he had read them and knew all of the mind-blowing information that was imparted in those books. And he knew that I had studied contactee cases since really the time that I was 26. So he called me and he said, look, I've just cut this deal. He said, I can sell this book. He goes, here's the title, The Extraterrestrial Species Almanac.
Oh, he gave you the title? Yeah.
He did. And he said, and you're the man to write the book. And I said, oh, I could definitely write that book. And he said, now just write up a little proposal. 4 days later, I had signed a contract and I was already writing the book. So what I did was I went back to all my contactee cases, which were current and past, right? And I came up with over 120 races. And they told me that I had to bring the book in under 300 pages and that they just wanted thumbnail reviews of each race. And I'm a big fan of Paul Hellyer and followed him when he was alive.
Okay.
And his last estimated of the races that he knew visiting Earth were 82. And I said, well, let me see if I can honor Mr. Hellyer.
Wow. Okay.
And squeeze in 82 races, which I did.
So it sounds like you have a sequel. I mean, if there's 120, you have 38 more to go, I think, right?
There's definitely a sequel. And here's the thing. I've redone all the artwork in color. I'm trying to get the publisher to do a hardcover, like a revamped version. Like I'll take out some races, put in a bunch of new ones, right? and then have all the pictures in color and, have a little hardcover book as well. And they said that they did that once in the past, and, that it's very expensive, but they did sell them all. I said, well, why wouldn't people buy this? It's sold, tens of thousands of copies. I mean, everybody knows the book. Everybody I know has it, and they buy it for friends.
So this book, you sold tens of thousands of copies?
Well, the last estimate that I got, which was a year ago, it was between 30 and 40,000 copies.
I sold tens of copies of my book. I think I sold maybe 120 copies. Wow.
It's difficult.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. Well, mine was sci-fi fiction and yours was reality. So, all right.
Yeah. But interestingly enough, it's that, it had them behind it who pushed it. And of course, I did a trailer myself. I did all the radio shows. I did, everything to get the word out there. And they said they wish all their writers would do that. So,
so I want to run through some of the remarkable images in your book.
Well, that's the Anunnaki.
So they're mentioned in the Bible, are they not?
They are mentioned in the Bible. There's so many different things about the Anunnaki. I have to sort of refresh myself because, some of these I did so much research on.
Yeah, I just because I have 12 photos. So just give me, what you'd like to impart to someone who never heard of any of these, a little bit about each of these races.
Well, they're the old generation of gods from the planet Nibiru, which in the Sumerian dictionary translates to Jupiter, right? And Anunnaki is taken from An, A-N, the Sumerian god of the sky. Right. So there's all these different stories that they came here, and some of them, they created man to be slaves to mine gold from them, and we're the leftovers from that. Right. But there's so many different races that have many other stories, right? Maybe all of them have a little truth to them, but we don't know. Right.
So Zachariah Sitchin wrote about the Anunnaki.
He sure did. He sure did.
I'm not as dumb as they said, Craig.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. Can't believe this is working. You have no idea how many hours
I'm so excited.
How many hours I spent practicing this because I'm the world's least.
Than me.
All right. This is a valiant Thor. So he's a created being. Tell me about this guy.
He is a created being. Valiant. Well, I made that's the Stranger at the Pentagon posters right there. I made the short film.
And it's about him.
Yep, this poster here, that's his ship. It's called Victor 1. These are the blueprints. Wow. People can go to strangeratthepentagon.com if you want to get these posters or Dr. Frank's out-of-print books, including Stranger at the Pentagon. And those are the blueprints. The Victor 1 holds 200 crew. It's double-deckered. And then there's Victor 2, Victor 3, Victor 4, Victor 5. It goes on and on and on. But Valiant Thor, the initial story is he came here in 1957. Our government knew he was a universal emissary was arriving, a created being. So that means a created being is created from the Godhead, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
They do not have a belly button. They do not die, but they can reinvent themselves, right? Now, I have heard other stories of other created beings that they were able to change the way they looked, even though they looked human. If they were very tall, they would usually bring themselves down to at least 5'6", with just short hair, like blue or brown eyes. So the person they were contacting would not fear them initially, right? There was one contact in Miami where the being actually told them, after a while, he was a created being, and he was here to answer his questions because they had been following him, listening to him when he was a young man. So he had, oh man, I can't remember how many, but over the course of 7 months, he met with them a lot. And he told me a story, but he never wanted it to be public. He said he decided it was for him. It was for his own spiritual being. But Valiant Thor, Dr. Frank Strange's first met him in December of 1959. And he was in contact with him all the way up until his death in November of 2000. I met Dr. Frank in 2001 or 2002. I ended up, through a whole course of events, writing the script, and then I ended up sitting with him for a few years every week. I said, look, the book is vignettes of stories. I said, I have to have the whole story. Right. So he would sit.
So Valiant Thor met with Eisenhower and Nixon when they were in office.
He lived at the Pentagon.
And he lived at the Pentagon. That's why he's Stranger at the Pentagon. Yeah.
Yes.
Incredible. What a story.
For 3 years now. I've talked to so many people over the years. There was another gentleman who had a radio show. He used to be in the CIA, and he would tell me off camera, he would say, I was there during those times. I'm telling you, the story is true. Wow. And he said, I'd like you to think of the name of Valiant Thor as a title. And I went, wow, that was interesting. I never thought of it that way. Then I had another man, a Secret Service man, contact me. Now, I can't prove that he was a Secret Service man, but, he just said, look, I was there. This is true. Major George Filer, right? Who is MUFON's, New Jersey's head of MUFON state. He was there during those times. And he said he heard about Valiant Thor being there. And when he would be walking down the halls, he said another person, another military person with him said, that's where he is. He's in that room during the day.
Wow. My dad gave talks quite often at the Pentagon. I wonder if he knew. Okay. I have so many things here. I just want to make sure we get through them.
Yeah.
All right, next is number 4, if I can find it. Here we go. Okay, tell me about Guardian Sacred Builder.
Well, Guardian Sacred Builders, they're fully conscious beings. They build, I would say, sacred geometry in architecture.
Okay.
Right? That kind of thing. So they're interesting.
Would that involve the pyramids?
No, I don't think they had anything to do with our pyramids. No. Okay. No, but if we notice a lot of things in the pyramids and in Mexico, there were a lot of grays that were depicted.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. This guy looks a little bit Asian.
A lot of them do have Asian eyes, even though they might look, more Americanized.
Okay. All right. Who's next? All right. So I can't wait to ask you about this one. Okay. So would you say this is Chris Bledsoe's Lady in White?
It is. It is actually, it's a giant painting that Doug Auld painted for Chris from his depiction of the Lady in Light.
Wow.
And so Doug and, of course, Chris, we put the Lady of Light in the ET Almanac, but Chris is also in the UFO Hotspot Compendium.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Exactly. So I did go down to North Carolina and visit with Chris for some time. He took me to where all the sites were on the Cape Fear River, where he was abducted, where everything happened. He also took me to the house that they abandoned because when he got his young son, put him in the truck. The rest of the family was gone. He came home at night. Their backyard is forest. And they started going towards the door, running to get in the door. The extraterrestrials, not the Lady of Light, the extraterrestrials started walking out of the forest.
When you spent time with Chris in person, did you see any extraordinary things there?
I did. I photographed one of the extraterrestrials while he was talking about it, and I didn't know it until I saw it on my camera the next day.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a Minolta camera, and it's strange. The being, its legs were only as long as to where our kneecaps are. The rest was a long torso.
Wow.
Long neck, elongated head, and it was holding a light device, and it was wearing goggles. And the minute I saw that, I went, oh, that's an interdimensional device, and those are interdimensional goggles like we use night vision goggles.
Wow.
Right?
So Chris Bledsoe's the real deal, isn't he?
He's a real deal. Chris has showed me so many videos of little beings and things like that were on that property. But the tree that's in his backyard, that there's a picture of Chris and I.
Right, the tree that burns but doesn't get consumed, right?
That's where the Lady of Light, I think, originally appeared to him. So it's a beautiful story. He talks about the Lady of Light in the E.T. Species Almanac documentary. So,
okay. All right, we'll get to that too. And he's going to be doing, I heard Ron Janik said, Chris is going to do a CE5 at Contact in the Desert.
Yeah. He's going there this year.
Okay, number 6 here. Okay, I love this one.
Those right there are my heart. Those are Pleiadians. That is the male is Turan. The female's name is Kyalina, and their child's name is Tawon, Thyone. They are the autobiography of an extraterrestrial saga revolves all around Turan's life.
I was going to ask you if they were Pleiadians from that book.
Yes, definite Pleiadians. Yeah. Most beautiful beings. Yeah.
So what artist created this piece for you?
Well, this one was done by Christine Dennett, who's a wonderful artist. She did all of my books initially. I'm revamping all my books, so I've redone all the artwork. It hasn't been released yet. And so they're going to be more current, more, they look more real. They look more stuff. It's using Photoshop, a little bit of AI, and then the artistry of the artist. Right? She's just fantastic.
I mean, your images, the images in this book are just magnificent. Really.
Yeah.
They're terrific.
Yeah. Christine is wonderful.
Do you know the name Mark Glenn Moore?
No.
Mark Glenmore. He's an HDA member. He's a good friend of mine. He lives in the Bay Area. I need to hook you up with him. He has had a relationship with Pleiadians since the age of 5.
Oh, wow.
I believe he's 60 now. He meets with them every so often, regularly. And he's writing his book, which I'm editing for him, about all his adventures since the age of 5. The woman's name is Maya. There's a woman named Maya who comes in and teaches him. And he describes them much as you do. And I got to hook you up with my friend.
You do.
Mark.
You have to definitely hook me up. Because
you guys have to talk.
Yeah.
I hooked him up with Britt Elders, and they've become very good friends.
Oh, that's so great.
Britt is so lovely. I love her. Okay, I love this one. Look at this one. Tell me about him.
Those are Soulzars. Those are really, really advanced beings. These beings here, what they did over time is they took 33 DNA chains of the most intelligent beings in the universe and integrated it into their society.
Wow.
So that brain is like a massive computer where we siphon stuff and throw it out.
Right.
They can retain it. Right? They're like that. And so the next one is that they will go to 44 DNA chains at some point in the future, and they will be like, super beings, if you even want to call them that. Right? They're amazing. I would say they're more Syrian than they are of anything else, but those chains, of course, come from all different races. Right?
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine
Yeah.
what goes on in that brain?
That actually is a airbrushed painting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This photo really spoke to me.
Yeah.
I would like to meet this guy.
Yeah, he's great.
He's great. I love him. Okay. I want to make sure we get to everything.
Sure.
Okay. So this is my girlfriend in my next life when I come back as a man. All right, Craig,
There we
you
go.
got to hook me up, Craig.
I know, she's a Venusian. So Dr. Frank explained to me that when Valiant Thor came here for his initial time before he went to the Pentagon, he was in the outskirts for a very long time, and he lived on the interior of Venus.
Okay.
So he was around a lot of Venusians and of course that planet's like us here. What we're learning is duality. There, it's unconditional love. Melchizedek has a school there. Melchizedek has many schools here, especially on the inner earth in all of the different things, like with Lemuria. They have, there. Other people who have gone into the inner earth and other things always said that there was a priest. Right? It's a Melchizedek priest. So now Melchizedek is the they call it the University at Melchizedek. It's the universal spiritual university, right?
Can I go there? Can you get me? Can you pull some strings and get me in there?
When we're done with whatever we have to do here,
right,
whether it's many incarnations or not,
right,
then we will go back to Melchizedek. We will learn there, and we can even learn in between lives. Wow. And then we decide what else we want to learn, and then we decide what planet we want to incarnate into. Wow. And usually now those lifetimes will be fully conscious beings, right? Not dualistic. We're not cut off from consciousness, the major consciousness in the universe. So those lifetimes will be quite long, right? Yeah. So that's exciting. So Venusians, they look like Nordics pretty much.
Didn't you tell me you get fan mail from men around the world who want to meet this girl?
I do, but they're usually hot for Pandosula.
Well, whoever that is, I wouldn't mind spending a few hours with. Okay, yeah. Let's see who's number 9. Number 9. Okay, this guy I would rather not meet.
Oh yeah. Those are the darker, taller grays.
Right.
Look, as many zillions of human races that are spread throughout the universe and interdimensionally, there are as many gray races.
Really?
Right?
Okay.
There are. And they come in all shapes and sizes and different kinds of things. Those eyes, there's beings. I've seen beings in my astral travels that have, the large, gray eyes. They're not all malevolent. Lots of them are, but a lot of them, their eyes are fluorescent. Like I've saw beings with fluorescent red eyes. I've seen a dark race called the Osons with fluorescent red-orange eyes.
Wow.
I've seen, black eyes. And sometimes the reason why they're black, and this is not in all cases, is that because their eyes are so large, they're like this on a head,
right,
that they put a lens over their eye because it's a big human eyeball in there because they're very light sensitive. So really what that is that you're seeing the black is really a lens. It's a permanent lens.
Okay. I only thought there were short grays and tall grays. I didn't know there were myriads
No,
of grays.
Chris Bledsoe's son was cornered by little, like 2 feet, 3 feet, little grays with bright red eyes.
Oh, those were grays. Yeah, I knew they had bright red eyes. This guy, Craig, this guy to me looks like he's really constipated.
I would not want to meet him.
No, but I think if he had a really good poop, I think this guy would, he just, I don't know why.
That's his poop face.
Yeah, he's like, I haven't gone in 3 months, and it's not good. It's not. It's just not good. Okay, number 10. Okay, this cute little guy, he's kind of cool.
Yeah, those are Zeta beings. They come from Zeta, also Cetus, and a few other places. They're very, very benevolent. And so instead of being called grays, because here on Earth, grays now have a negative connotation,
right?
Because they're from Zeta Reticuli constellation, they prefer to be called Zeta humans.
Now, didn't Betty Hill draw a map of Zeta Reticuli? She did,
and that was with Junior. Junior looked different than the little Zetas, the positive Zetas that were on that ship. Junior looked a little more human. We actually took the bust that Betty had done of Junior, and we digitized it, and we brought him to life the way he's supposed to look, because his eyes are like a gecko's. His skin is blue and bumpy with a silver tint.
I never heard that he was named Junior. I never heard that before.
She called him Junior. Yeah,
wow.
She called him Junior. And so
I'm friends with Kathleen Martin, and she never told me that.
Yeah. Kathleen tells the story in that documentary. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to watch that. 10. Okay, just a few more.
Okay. Those are like hybridy beings, right? Sort of between a mantis and a gray and that kind of thing. A lot of times what's terrifying about them is that when you see them, you don't get an emotional vibration because they're emotionless.
Yeah.
But from talking to people who say they are hybrids of certain things, like there's a woman who's a hybrid mantis who is in the documentary. She says the emotions are there. They're just not on the surface. They do feel them. They just don't express them. But that, they're very, very benevolent beings. I've not heard anything negative except for people fear them because if you were on a ship and you saw that.
Oh yeah, I would faint.
You would totally, be terrified.
Yeah, so, imagine Craig. Imagine when this guy has a sore throat, like how many cough drops he needs to suck on. All right, we got to move. We have 10 minutes left. Okay. I got to get through this here. I don't want to miss anything. Okay, so in my book, After They Came, the bad aliens are draconians. This is a draconian. He looks like a stegosaurus dinosaur, right?
Yeah, they all, they all look different. It's, what can I say? Draconians are just the bad, malevolent beings. They pretty much do attack a lot of starseeds. I've had many reports of those when I was going through my initial waking process.
Would you say are they the worst of the worst? Are they the most evil?
No, they're bad, but I don't think that. I think that there are others that are worse. That are worse than they are.
Okay.
Yeah, but look, that's why we have the angelic core. We have all of these things protecting us from all of that. So I don't want, viewers, listeners to get freaked out.
Okay, this one is a Lizardian female.
Yeah, they're so
I've dated girls that look like. Tell me real quick about her, and then I want to talk about your documentary.
Absolutely. Well, they're also benevolent. This David Chase has a lot of experiences with positive reptilians. He actually drew this beautiful picture of her. And, a lot of people do have great positive experiences with, of all different classifications, as well as some having bad ones.
Okay. Okay, good to know that all the reptilians aren't bad. Okay,
no.
Here we go. I can find it. Okay. Last year, your I've not had a chance to see it, but just tell me quickly. I know you've interviewed a lot of heavyweight people in here. Just what's the story behind the doc?
So the documentary is an extension of the book, and what I wanted to do was do something that was different than other documentaries. There really hasn't been one that's done on extraterrestrials. So we shot everybody pretty much on green screen, and then put people in otherworldly environments. So it brings you into that feeling of being out in the universe. So, Paul Hynek does Men in Black, Daryl Anka does Bashar, Chip Coffey does the Mothman, Sixto Paz, who's been in contact with the Alpha Centaurians for umpteen years, been on their craft, he says, over 100 times. Of course, Barbara Lamb.
Yvonne
Smith as well.
Chris Bledsoe talks about the Lady of Light.
And Chris Bledsoe does. He does talk about the Lady of Light. And Athena Sharan talks about Agartha because she had several friends who were Agarthans, some of who I've spoken to as well. And she talks quite a lot about it, which is just very, very fascinating as well. Of course, Kathleen Marden, Alejandro Rojas talks about the ant people with the Allagash.
Craig, is this available for streaming?
It will be. It's on Projector right now. That's the only place that somebody can rent it. It's Projektor.
That's a streaming channel? It's a streaming channel?
It will go wide at the end of March or April.
Okay.
It's just that the distributor, it takes 3 months for them to get it out on all the platforms. So
I know it's available on DVD.
Yeah, and it's available on DVD, which you'll post the link, and if people want me to sign the cover, just ask me to, and I'll sign it.
Will you be, I'm sure you will, a contact in the desert? Will you be?
I'm really going to try to be there.
We have an HDA booth. You can, if you don't have a physical place, you can do whatever you want at the HDA booth.
Oh, cool. So I can bring some stuff and
sell it. With swag, whatever you want. Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later.
All right, cool. That'd be great. Okay. That would be awesome.
Okay, let's talk about your other little book, which I just finished the other day. This is just so much fun. Tell me the premise behind this one.
So they wanted me to do a follow-up to E.T. Almanac. And so they wanted to call it the UFO bucket list. So that's what it was called right from the beginning. So what we did is we had the head of MUFON send out to all the state directors to nominate their favorite UFO hotspots.
Oh, that's great.
They did. And then I picked them, and then I worked with a lot of them to bring the most updated information, the Project Blue Book information as well. Which if it, went along with it, it was stated at the end of each chapter. So you got the most up-to-date information on the case. And then what was great is a lot of the places people don't even know how to reach. So I put the coordinates in there for you. So you could go visit.
I thought that was brilliant. Yeah, that was really brilliant. Yeah. And I mean, it's like where you park,
exactly.
If you have to hire a Sherpa, where the bathroom is.
Yeah, everything that you need to do.
It was great. There was nothing in there that struck me, obviously, as a point that you may have missed. I think you got the greatest hits. Yeah. I think you got the greatest hits in there. Okay, let's see. Stop sharing. Okay. All right. So you and I both work in Hollywood, and we're both UFO ET fanatics, to say the least. And you are a founding member of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, which you know Steve Bassett and I created 2 years ago. Tell me, in your opinion, and we have about 3 minutes, how do you think Hollywood historically has handled this issue, and what do you think Hollywood could do better moving forward to propel disclosure?
Here's the thing. I've talked with Steve a lot, right? I even did, when I did a little show with Steve, I researched the number of projects that the government funded, which was over 2,400, but it had to be that they saw the scripts and they had to tell you what they wanted in the scripts, which usually was to make, the Air Force or whatever to look better. But with Stranger at the Pentagon short film that I made over 10 years ago, right? These are the films that the audience I know wants. It went crazy all over the world. I'm trying to right now get it off the ground. That's my next thing, is to make the feature film. It's all ready to go. So any millionaires listening, call me.
And me too. I have a 3-part script for after they came. Yeah, absolutely.
And because, it's one of the most fascinating stories that a lot of people don't know a lot of the inner workings of what he did while he was there for those 3 years and what happened afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, that the premise behind HDA, Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, the premise which Stephen and I came up with is, we had a long lunch, and he said, "Dad, I'm a disclosure guy. You're a Hollywood guy. What can we do together?" I said Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, and then we came up with UAP, UFO, ET experiencers and researchers and disclosure advocates, and no one's a bigger disclosure advocates than Steve Bassett, right?
Right, exactly.
And then with people like you and myself and Sean Jablonski and T. Wallace and Thomas Jane, people on the Hollywood Entertainment Show busy side, to inspire and nurture the next era of feature films, TV shows, and documentaries based on the real life experiences of real life people. That's what. Yes. And I spoke to Lori Wagner the other day. She told me that she's working with Craig Oliver, the 1933 UFO that Mussolini got. So that came through the HDA. It's pretty cool.
Yes, and I met him at your Christmas party.
At the holiday party. Yeah, you were sitting with him. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. How can people, real quick, what do you have happening soon, and how can people reach you?
They can reach me. My website is autobiography of OF unanet.com. The homepage has my initial 4-book series. If you click on other books, you will find, ET Almanac, all the stuff, the DVD, everything is on that page. Just scroll down. strangeratthepentagon.com. If you want to see the short film, the only place that's available is on Amazon Prime right now.
Stranger at the Pentagon?
Stranger at the Pentagon short film is on Amazon Prime. Unfortunately, Vimeo just went through a whole thing, so it's no longer available on Vimeo. And now it's just on Amazon Prime. I'm trying to get them to put it up there for people to download as well. But I've been fighting with them for 5 months, and they keep saying, "Oh, they're backed up. They're backed up."
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I want to see that. And then you think you might be at Contact in the Desert? You're not sure?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I really want to go. So,
and I really want you to be there so we can hang out. So we can hang out. I think it would be great. Listen, thank you so very much for doing this. And I know it's a little hairy at first because I have no idea what I'm doing. But thank you for being my friend. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for being in the Hollywood Disclosure Lines. And thank you, everyone, for watching my dopey show now on the HDA YouTube channel. I have a lot of amazing guests coming up the next 6 months. So hang in there with me. I'll figure out how to do this correctly. Thank you, Craig Campobasso, so very much.
Thank you so much.
And I'll see you all next week on From Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight. Mindy Toutfest next week. Do you know Mindy Toutfest?
No.
She's the head of the International UFO Bureau, which no one's ever heard of.
Oh my God!
And they've been around since 1957. So
God!
she's my guest next week. Thank you, everybody. I gotta go.
Bye, everybody.